Today I'd like to share on a very profound topic. How is it possible, how it is possible to dissolve trauma, shock, even terror and fear? And once upon a time I would have thought, that's insane. Like, how can that happen? And I can remember we used to run weekend retreats over the last 22 years. And one particular lady who came to me had the most profound experience as we helped her just listen to herself and to what the spirit brought up and to experience the transformation in the traumatic memories that she had and shock and trauma. And she said, I have been, and this is not at all being critical of anyone, because anyone who's helping, I'm grateful for. But in her case, this is what she shared. She said, I've been everywhere looking for help, but I've not been able to get the help that I've got here today. This is profound. I can't believe after all these years that all this fear and terror and trauma can just dissolve. I just found it hard to believe, but she said it's true, and this is what I'm experiencing. Now, the next day after the seminar, we saw her because it was a weekend. She said to me, oh, I think it's all gone. Now, that's the danger. I guess one of the big things is she actually did receive the transformation when she looked back at the circumstances that had caused the trauma and the terror. The day prior to that, after she had encountered herself and encountered the truth and the presence, none of the feelings were relevant. None of the negative all the disassociated parts of her in the dark and in the pit, etc. None of it was relevant anymore. She just felt this peace and light and grace. But what she had done is this, and I want to share this with you. It's been one of my Achilles' heel, is that she doubted. Next day she doubted, could this be possibly? And when we stand in prayer, we're in prayer and asking in prayer and thanksgiving, one of the things that we've been warned about, and if we really want to go on the path of life and truth, we need to listen to the truth and apply it to our lives. And I'm still learning that, but I know what to do, and that is to not doubt. And if you are questioning, go back and ask the Wonderful Counsellor, the Spirit of Truth and Life, is this true? What is the truth? And he will repeat it to you. But if you doubt, it is like a big door that you open up, and in comes not only all the past and all that, and it's like it's recreated, because that doubt makes you think, oh no, it couldn't be possible. So as you believe, so will it be done to you. So do not doubt. That was a profound sharing with me. There's nothing I could do to her except share with her, not to doubt, let the doubt go. And I said, go back and look at it now and ask for the truth. And it was quite quickly that she was able to experience the truth. But for all of us here today, you may have some profound experiences through the meditation. Do not doubt them at the end. It's possible for the one who's giving you life right this second and is within you, who is the Spirit of life and truth and love. And he really has come to set us free. And he set me free, and I'm continuing to be set free. And it's showing in my life. Everything's becoming lighter and easier and better because I was I had so much shock and trauma and terror in my own personal life. And it started as early as, and I'm starting with the stories first, and I'm only going to touch on this because many people have heard this before. It started as early as in the womb. Let me explain. The story was this. I was with the family one night, and I remember feeling so isolated and alone with them. Anyone ever felt like that? Isolated and alone, like you're there, but you feel like you're not connected at all to them. You feel disconnected. Anyway, as a result of that, this terrible aloneness became a trigger now on reflection, a real trigger. And I suddenly felt all this emotion. They'd not said anything terribly bad. I just felt so disconnected and so chronically alone. And all this emotion came up and I thought, I need to get out of here. And I walked home in my high heels for whatever, half an hour. And I cried. I mean, literally sobbed all the way home. And I got home and I thought, what is wrong with me? What in the heck is going on? Now, that was a trigger. And has anyone else felt like that? Sometimes like for my husband, he'll look at a snake and he'll get full of terror and fear because he had a trauma with a snake, which hasn't been resolved yet. So it immediately would trigger off all the trauma. Anyway, I was later on, one of the team facilitated me and helped me to listen to those feelings, all of those thoughts, and be guided by the wonderful counsellor, always guided by the wonderful counsellor because he knows me inside out. And I went back to a memory in the womb. Now, how do I know it's the womb? You just get a sense of it. You have a sense of being in this dark space. And in that space, I could hear, or I felt this little part of my memory, because memory begins right at the beginning. It was in darkness because there was trauma. And in that memory, I felt alone, abandoned, betrayed, traumatized, terrified. And I believed that I shouldn't even be there. To cut a long story short, we invited the truth to come in. And all this light came into this darkness, in this memory that I had in my mind. And all of the negative feelings, as I said a moment ago, dissolved. And I no longer felt alone. I felt safe, secure, not alone. And it came all the way through my memories to today. And from that moment on, and there was much more to it, but I want so much else to share. So I'll just move on. But from that moment on, I never, ever, ever got triggered again. I never felt alone again. I can be with people and I just feel full inside and secure in here, which is huge after spending, I don't know, 60 years having that feeling, come and go, come and go, come and go. That was trauma, shock, terror, and fear. My mother later confirmed that when she was carrying me, she went through abandonment, being rejected, judged, condemned, and she wished she wasn't pregnant with me. She confirmed everything that I had felt in the womb after I experienced that, after I experienced the healing. And she never meant any harm to me. It's just that she was going through a very traumatic experience and I had absorbed it all. Now, you don't know this on a logical basis. All you know is the trigger. And you think, am I crazy? Am I off my head? So that can be triggered. And don't go looking, because that's something that the wonderful counsellor will take you to in his presence, in his love, and only take you where you will experience healing. So trauma is a deeply distressing or disturbing experience. A personal trauma like trauma of a death of a child or a near-death experience, bombing like, what's going on now in various parts of the world, where there's extensive damage to a town, and physical injury is, as well. You can have a trauma by falling down the stairs. All of those things. And God has created now, as I've worked with people for 22 years and longer, it's at that moment, it's like part of us separates and goes into this other space, because it's sometimes too much for us physically, mentally, emotionally to experience, certainly for a little baby like I was. And you go into this, you float away and you can move in and out of this space. And someone who's on the screen today shared with me that she felt like that. She often can float away. It's like you're present with people, but you are so aware of not being present. You can float away and you'd rather be in that foggy, blank, not the dark space so much. These are all memories, by the way, place, because it's kind of like not with the world. And that's when you're still quite injured and badly injured. And I was moving like that, and I'd catch myself not really being present. Shock is a sudden, unexpected, threatened or violent, surprising event or experience. It affects us mentally, emotionally, spiritually. It's sudden. My husband had an experience the other day of going to the dentist. It can be little as this. And he was, they were putting some substance in his mouth to show him the bacteria in his mouth and around his teeth before they cleaned them. And it went down the back of his throat, and it created like he said it felt like 3 marbles go down there, and he couldn't breathe. And he had to wave, and he sat up, and he couldn't get free of this stuff in his throat that had closed over, or his airways had closed over. And he was just traumatized. He was shocked. It happened suddenly, couldn't breathe. And all of you had experiences like this to some degree. Snakes, whatever it can be. Anyway, so finally he sat up, and he apparently was pale. And the lady who looks after the surgery came in and said, you know, you okay? And later on she says, you don't need to go home. And he said, I felt like I wasn't connected to myself. I was outside of myself. I was foggy. So that happens when you have a shock. You suddenly feel like you go somewhere else. It's a way of God coping. But God can go in, if you acknowledge that foggy place, he can, I'll show you later on, you can experience, you can actually experience that foggy place, that blank place. And you can, if you don't run from it, you can invite, and you sit with it, you can invite the presence of light and love, Jesus and spirit, but you've got to wait in it. Most of us run from it. Most of us run from our pain. I do the opposite. We listen to it and we invite the spirit into it. It's like going to a doctor's. How can he heal you if you're not going to show him what it is that you're feeling and where you're injured or where you need help? You bring it to the divine physician and you wait. Don't run in that blank, sort of foggy place. And we invite the spirit in, and it gets full of light, and we invite him to bring integration, to bring back all the shattered, traumatized parts. It can feel like you've got no control at that moment, maybe like you're going to die. My daughter was going over Westgate Bridge. She almost died a number of occasions when she was younger with me through really bad asthma. And then she got triggered coming over the freeway. And it's something that happened during that driving over the freeway, which is pretty dangerous. She got this experience where she felt like she was going to drive off the bridge. Now, if that happens to her, it can happen to other people who've been traumatized or shocked, and they don't know how to fix that. She came straight to me, and Geraldine happened to be here with me that night, and she came to the door and she was ashen. So we invited her in and we got her to sit with what she felt. I'm going to die. I said, just let's look at it together. So we don't run from it. We look at it and all the fogginess and everything. And it went back to a memory of her in hospital where she couldn't breathe and she felt she was going to die. And so we stayed with that memory and we invited the presence of Jesus, the light. It's just a presence more often that people see of light. And I said, just watch and look and observe so you don't run from it. And she experienced this beautiful presence. I said, how terrified is the little page in there? And she said, no. She said, it's all gone. So I said, look back at tonight over the bridge and we'll ask that presence to come with you. Oh, she said, no, it was just a trigger. It was just a bridge and I'm fine now. And she sort of felt better in herself. I wasn't going to speak about this today, but this is what's coming to me. Okay, so you can feel you have no control of that moment. You could feel terrified, foggy, floating, disoriented, outside of yourself, separated, in a void. My mother later on in life, because I had so much healing and so much transformation deep within me that it affected all my life. And I was able to help her rather than wanting her to help me. And she felt like she was in a void. She was very damaged, very traumatized. And she was in a void. So you can feel like you're in a void. She experienced a change and her life got better. We became like girlfriends. I felt like I'm in a black pit sometimes. All of a sudden I'm in a black pit, and I can't get out. I feel trapped. So that's all part of disassociation through trauma, shock, terror, and fear. Something that's happening. It can be a car crash. and then you'll hear screeching of tires, and you'll get this terrible fright again because you've never had the original. So that which is unresolved repeats itself, only so you can sit with it in the presence of people you trust or with the divine counsellor, and wait and invite him in, invite his light in, and he'll calm, literally calms the water. You can be mentally. One lady I was working with when I was at a group, and there was a priest there, and she came forward for me to help her. And I never know what's going to happen. It's really like an adventure for me. And I asked the divine counsellor only bring up what's appropriate. And in her case, she was suddenly back in a memory where she was at school. And many of you might relate to this. And the teacher was screaming at her and telling her what an idiot she was, that it was her fault and she'd never be, and I don't know, she was saying terrible things to her. And at that moment, it was sudden, unexpected, and she was traumatized. And then I said, stay with that. We're not going to run from it. And she said, oh my God, I'm floating away and I'm in this other space, just like explained before. And I said, well, we're going to ask the divine counsellor, where do we go? Stay with your memory, or we go this floating place, because that's still part of her memory that is separated, and I don't expect you to understand. But if you feel that foggy part, I'm going to give you an experience of asking the divine counsellor where you need to go. He needs to lead each step. And in her step, she went to that foggy place, and she felt all alone. She felt all the feelings. They were trapped in that foggy part of her memory, traumatized memory, part of her memory. And so we listened to all the feelings, all the beliefs. It's all on that course on our website. And she experienced the presence and truth, and all of that was filled with light. And that part of her memory came back to the child in the memory, and that memory no longer had that trauma in it. And she was free. None of it was relevant anymore. I'm telling you profound stuff. I'm telling you what is possible because I have experienced it, I have seen it, and I have seen so many people's lives changed as a result. Because otherwise we retreat from life. We protect ourselves. We guard ourselves because we don't ever want to feel that feeling again. One lady said, I'm never going to go away this is a decision. I'm never going to go away at Easter anymore because I almost had an accident. So she thought by staying home at Easter, she would never have an accident. Now, if you make decisions out of all your trauma, you keep on closing doors and your life becomes smaller, your mind becomes smaller. When you don't face what the wonderful counsellor wants you to face, you switch off. You don't want to know because you don't want to go back there. You don't want to feel those feelings. And all we do is look at the feelings. We just bring them to the doctor, the divine doctor, and all the beliefs and any decisions you've made, and we ask him to come in. I know I'm repeating it, but it is unbelievable. Otherwise, phobias occur. One young woman that we know of was abused sexually. And she was, and I'm telling you this because I know abuse is so relevant, and I don't really want to tell you, but I want to tell you. So she had a pillow. She had a phobia with feathers. When she went back, we just looked at the feathers, and suddenly she was back in her memory. She's on a bed. A man came in and put a feather pillow over her face and abused her. So those feathers was a trigger for her when she was abused. So I said, if it's appropriate, let's stay there long enough, and we're going to invite the wonderful counsellor and your saviour, the one who's going to be your defender, your protector, the one who's going to be there. And she had such a profound experience of release. Otherwise, we develop these strange phobias where we don't like things. We've got to wash our hands all the time. We've got to lock doors. We become paranoid because of unresolved trauma and shock and terror. And in all of the dramatic stuff, I'm going to give you a break for a moment because I want to read something that's beautiful. And this is something you can do. This is where I've come to, and I know to be truthful, and it's very much relevant to the work that we do, which is always listening to ourselves, feelings and thoughts, and bringing them to the Wonderful Counsellor. I read this yesterday and I sent it to the team. So I'm going to read it again. And one of the greatest lessons in my life, this is Richard Raw, who's a wonderful, I find him wonderful. He's a priest. After prayer came from a renegade rabbi. How cute is that? Renegade rabbi who spent decades working on the streets of New York City, rescuing kids from homelessness and prostitution. He was a holy man who has dedicated his life to seeking God in the darkest shadows. Now, what have I been talking about? Pits, dark spaces. He went to the physical dark places. We go to the mental and emotional dark places. Darkest shadows of Manhattan. He helped to make prayer real by giving me these simple instructions. If you remember nothing else today, remember this, please. When you pray, talk to God just as if you were talking to your best friend. It's not a gazillion rosaries, and I love the rosary. There are times when that's appropriate. Tell the Holy Spirit everything, especially dedicate specific times each day when you tell God about all your worries, all your hurts, problems. Take off your masks of being strong, guarded, pretending. If you really let your whole essence speak to God like that, some days there will be a lot of tears, but that's a good thing. It's release, like we do in Agape. And when you are done telling God about your hurts, just silently rest in God, letting God hold you. That's the key, not running. Just letting yourself be with whatever it is that you feel and inviting him in and wait. If you wait long enough, I promise you, a peace will come. And we're here if you get stuck. Just silently rest in God, letting God hold you. That's what I do every morning. What I did this morning, because every day we've had a lot of continuing trauma with one of the members of our family, but it's their journey at the moment. But it does have an effect on you. This morning I woke and I felt a bit shattered. And I didn't get out of bed. I just said, you show me how I feel. And I felt really shattered. I felt almost pain in my body. Again, if you don't deal with it, it can go into all sorts of other physical elements. So as I waited with this pain this morning, I just simply acknowledged and accepted how I felt before I got out of bed. And I just waited, as this beautiful rabbi said, and I invited the spirit in, and I waited. I said, just more of your spirit. If there's anything I need to let go of or say I do, you let me know. And I just waited. By the time I got out of bed, I felt peace in every part of my being. I could feel the shadow. I could feel the shadow of what I felt, which has obviously been some stuff I've picked up this last week. But I felt at peace. That's what you can do every day. And that, you know what you can do too, and I want to say this in the middle of this. It's something that struck me the other day. If you develop rather than I can do, if you develop the we can do, the spirit of life, you work as a team member, you become friends with the one who has the power of the universe, and you learn to ask and listen throughout the day, wherever you are. I don't care whether you're at parties, wherever you go, just invite him and be conscious and be aware, as Michael said. And then for the rest of the day, practice joy and optimism. optimism, knowing that you are a God's beloved child, knowing that you are loved, and knowing that you are carrying a great gift in your heart. You may not feel like God's child, but you need to tell him about that. In some of the most difficult times in my life, this way of prayer is what saved me. Telling God everything, crying with God, wrestling with God, and then when all is said and done, just resting in God, feeling loved into newness, feeling loved into aliveness and joy. All right, so I'm just going to ask the wonderful counsellor through that meditation. I'm going to do the meditation separately, so you can just go back to the meditation when you feel like you want to just listen to the meditation, not the talk and the meditation. And you'll get to see that I'll be taking you through, well, I'll ask the wonderful counsellor. You may call him Jesus, Holy Spirit, source of life, light, truth, wisdom. All of those words relate to him. He has many, many other names. But when you're seeking truth, he's one and the same. And he will reveal all of your feelings, and all your feelings come, and all your trauma, and all your shock, that he wants you to experience today, because there's a time, and you have to be open to that time. He'll reveal only what you are open to. And all you have to do is not go back into the whole story, but just the feelings. And then the feelings would lead, and you should ask him. He will reveal all that you're thinking and believing, remembering that if you believe anything really negative, it needs to be held to him. So it can give you his perspective, his truth. And then you listen, accepting his truth. And you may have to do this again and again and again, because we often go back into default, and we go back to our old habits, our old patterns, being guards, protectors, closing off, and we go back into habitual habits. But if you sit, as I said earlier, each day and begin, I started with 5-10 minutes and then went on to an hour to 2 hours. And now it varies depending on what goes on. Sit and wait, but be open. Be open to being real and honest. And I remember many people have said to me, oh my gosh, I said, what's it like out in that blank space? And they say, I feel like I'm little pieces everywhere. I'm scattered and I'm shattered. It's like they've been smashed. And then I'll just say, well, unless the wonderful counsellor wants to reveal any other feelings or thoughts, we're going to ask him, is it appropriate to bring all those bits back to you so you feel more whole? And one particular lady said, oh, I can see them all. And in fact, many, many people have said, I can sense that they're all coming back into me. And later on, she shared to me an image. She said it was like a vase that had been smashed into little pieces. And the wonderful counsellor was bringing back parts of it bit by bit by bit, because to make the vase whole, which is ourselves, he had to glue that part back in with his love. And it has to become more solid. Then he'll glue another part back and another part back of our soul and our spirit or our memories, until we become like a vase that'll have lots of different cracks in it. But those cracks can become part of the pattern of who we become as a compassionate, understanding, caring person, because we have been there, and we can be there for others to the degree that we allow ourselves to be. And she said that vase is actually more beautiful in its own way, with its cracks and crazes, than it was in the first place, and she accepted it. Okay, perfect. There's a beautiful bit of scripture that says perfect love. That's what I'm talking about all day. Perfect love casts out fear in 1 John. And the wonderful news is, I don't care what you have done in your life, what has been done to you and to make you feel bad, guilty, responsible, and their beliefs, you know, like it never change, all of that sort of stuff. Because there's a beautiful bit of scripture that I know to be true if you open yourselves only to the Spirit of light and truth, who is, for it's by grace, which is you have been saved through faith. And this is not your own doing. It is the gift. It's a gift of God, not a result of works. So many Christians work so hard and believe they've got to earn. This is Ephesians 2. It is by grace. So you can ask for more grace each day and more faith in each day in the one who can bring all those different parts of you together so you become more whole, more compassionate and more understanding, so that no one may boast and of course never doubt after you've had wonderful, wonderful healings. Thank you for listening to this. I'm going to close this talk for now, and I'm going to talk to the people on the seminar. And so we do invite you to get in touch with ask@agapeencounter.org, ask@agapeencounter.org, if you wish to be put on our mailing list, and we can let you know when we do other seminars. Otherwise, you can find many of them on YouTube, Agape Encounter YouTube. Thank you for listening.